Let us discuss how to check if a list is empty in Python. Now let us discuss the problem statement before moving into the solutions. Consider that you have been given a list and you want to check if it is empty. Now as you can see on the screen, we have a list li which happens to be empty. Now we have to apply some method to check if the list li is empty or not. So without further delay, let us jump into the solutions. We will be using 4 methods. The first method is a Boolean operator, that is not. We will be using the not Boolean operator to reach our solution. Then in the next method, we will use an explicit check using the len method. Then we will use a simple workaround with an empty list, that is open and closed square bracket notation. And lastly, we will be using exception handling with the iter method. Now let us jump into the first method. The easiest and the most Pythonic solution to our problem statement is to use a Boolean operator, as you can see on the screen. The operator or the Boolean operator that we are using to reach our solution is not. The table given on the screen represents Boolean operations available in Python. So you can clearly see that we have 3 Boolean operators available in Python, which are or, and not, and we will be using not to solve our problem. Now let us jump into the code. Let us define our empty list. Now let's define the if statement along with the Boolean operator not li, and then print li is empty. So what we are doing here is we are checking if the list li does not have any element using the Boolean operator not. If the condition is evaluated to true, then we will print that the list is empty. Now let's check if this works. And there we go. We have a solution. As expected, the list is empty. Now let us jump into the next method. The next method is performing an explicit check using the len function. Len is an inbuilt method in Python that returns the length of an object. So let us have a look at a program to understand how we can use len method to find the length of objects in Python, and then we will find out how we can leverage the len method to find how to know if the list is empty. So let us get back to our programming screen. Let me clear the screen for you. Now let us define a variable named name which holds the string Finxter. Now let's define a dictionary which has name as a key, and Finxter is the value of the key name. The second key that we are using is founder. Both the keys are strings in our dictionary. Chris is the value of the founder key. Now let's define a tuple which holds the following values: 1, 2, 3. That should be good enough. Now let's define an empty list. Now let's use the len function to find the length. So we can simply print len of name. Similarly, let me copy this, paste. So first we are printing the length of the variable name, which happens to be a string. Then we will print the length of the variable d, which happens to be a dictionary, and then we will find the length of the tuple tup. That's it. Before moving on to the next phase of the program, let's check if this works for us. And there we go. We have our output. So you can clearly see that the variable name holds the value Finxter, which happens to be a string and has the length of 6. Similarly, dictionary D has two key value pairs, so its length is 2, and the tuple tup has 3 values, so its length is 3. Now let's move on to the next phase of our program to see how we can use the len function and check if the list is empty or not. So let us define our if statement, and then we use the len function to find the length of the list li, and then we check if the list length is 0. If so, then we consider that the list is empty. Print empty. Else print not empty. Now let's check this code, and as you can see, we find that the list is empty, which is true in our case. Now let's check if this actually works. Let's put some values inside the list. That should be good enough. Now let's check our code. And now you see that the list is not empty. So this works perfectly for us. Moving on to the next method, we will use a simple workaround with open and closed square brackets, that is an empty list. Sometimes the easiest solutions are closer than we think, but we do not ponder upon them because we think they are too easy to be true. So let us discuss one such solution. We are back to our programming screen. Let's clear our screen, also clear the output screen, and now let's see how we can use an empty list notation to check if the list is empty. So let's define the list li, which is empty now. If li is empty, then print empty. Else print not empty. That's all. Now let's check our output, and there we go. We have our solution. Now to cross check this, let's put some elements in our list. 1 2 3, that should be good enough. Now let's check our solution, and there we go. Since the list is not empty anymore, we have our solution as not empty. So this works again. Now that brings us to the final method. This is a very silly method, however it works. In this method we will be using an exception along with the iter function. Before moving into the code, let me tell you, the iter function is an inbuilt method in Python which creates an iterable object that can be iterated with one element at a time. I hope that was clear. Now let us jump into our programming screen. Let's clear the screen as usual, clear the output screen, and we are ready to go. Let us define our empty list li. Now we will be using try block, which will have the iter function li inside the iter function, and then we print x. Now we also need to define our except block, since we have already defined our try block. Now let's print empty. So as you can see that the list is empty, the output expected in our case is empty, because when the program control moves into the try block, it won't find any element, so the except block will be executed. Now let's see if that works. and there we go. So I told you this might be a silly trick, but it works. Just to cross check this, let us put an element inside the list. Okay, that should be good enough. And now let's execute our program. Now as you can see, we have the value 1 that is inside the list returned, and the except block is no more executed because the list is no more empty. I hope you learned something from this video. Now that was enough for the day. Please subscribe our channel, and if you learned something out of this video, I would be really grateful, and that would motivate me if you give it a like. That's all. Thank you. Goodbye.